In this module, we will cover two techniques that can be used for managing your onstage fear. I use this every single time and it works like a charm. It works like a charm. The first technique is the one that is tried, tested, and it works even if you look at it from a scientific perspective. And that is to take time the moment you show up on stage. Once you are on stage, take your time. I take 10 full seconds every single time I show up on stage to make my speeches. I know, 10 seconds seems like a lifetime when you are standing in front of a large audience. Whether it is 10 people or 10,000 people, 10 seconds could mean a lot. It could seem like a lifetime. But then, if you gather the courage to take the time to compose yourself, you will see the benefits very, very clearly. See, that time gives you enough opportunity to compose yourself, to gather yourself, to cool yourself down, to calm your nerves. See, because nobody says that you have to speak immediately on showing up on the stage. Nobody says that. So there is no compulsion to speak immediately. This is the mistake that most people do. They show up on stage and they think they have to start speaking immediately as though somebody was pushing them from behind. I'm telling you, take your time. Take your time. One of the things that I do the moment I show up on stage, especially if I'm nervous, is I do belly breathing. I do several belly breathing. I take some very deep breaths with my belly. Belly breathing is the best form of breathing and it helps calm down the nerves. I take 3, 4, 5, as many as required to calm down my nerves even before I can say my very first word. Now, in addition to belly breathing, if you're not very comfortable standing right in front of the audience, one of the things that you can do is to start shuffling some papers or writing some notes or pretending to do something other than just standing there staring at the people. Now, I don't personally do that, but then certainly it is a technique, because rather than staring at people, you can always do things that will absorb you in shuffling papers, buying the time to calm your nerves down. Instead, what I do personally is I start scanning the room very slowly as I'm belly breathing. I look at the room from the left to the right very slowly and from right to the left. As I absorb the scene, as I absorb the people, as I absorb the faces, trying to look for familiar faces, people that I met when I initially greeted them. And that gives me the time to compose myself. Try it. It works. Now, one other technique that I use, which also works, is to take the focus away from me. To take the focus away from my own self. Again, like the earlier technique, this works like a charm every single time. But it does take conscious practice. And that technique is to remember that this is not about you. This is not an exercise to glorify who you are. It's not about adding glory to your personal self. It is about them. It's about the audience. So your entire attention has now to be focused on the audience. You are there to impart your wisdom, to tell them what you have learned, the material that you have gathered. So focus on helping them understand what you came to tell them. You are there to teach, they are there to learn, and that is exactly what you are going to do, rather than having to think about you, yourself, your problems, your issues with nervousness. Start thinking of a speech as a conversation. Pick one person from the audience, person right in the first row or the middle row, somewhere, a familiar face. Start right there. Speak to one person at a time. speak to one person, and once you are comfortable with that one person, move on to the other person, so on and so forth. So the first technique is to take your time. Don't be compelled to speak immediately. Take 10 full seconds if that is what it takes. Don't be compelled to speak immediately on showing up on stage. And the second technique is to take the focus away from you. Instead, focus on the audience. Start talking to them because you came to teach them. They are here to learn. Think of a speech as a conversation. Start speaking to that one familiar person and then move on to the next person, so on and so forth.